Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another Lessons in Leadership as part of our overall Lessons in Leadership series. Today, we have a really very interesting speaker who I think you're going to enjoy, and I will introduce her in a little bit here. Let me please remind you that if you would like to see past sessions of Lessons in Leadership, you can find them on the Detroit Regional Chamber website. Just go to detroitchamber.com and then go to events and lessons in leadership, and then you'll find the past sessions. This one today also is being recorded, so you'll be able to also share with your other colleagues if you think it's something that they should click on and watch, which I'm sure you may want to after you hear from her. So again, today it's Lessons in Leadership, and we'll be talking with Najah Bazzy, and I will introduce her shortly. But first, I have to recognize our sponsor, Bank of America, who was so generous to support the entire series of Lessons in Leadership. And I'd like to introduce now from Bank of America, Tiffany Douglas, who is the Market Executive of Detroit Local Markets Organization for Bank of America. Hello, Tiffany.
Hi, Tammy. It's so great to be with you again, and welcome again to everyone. And thanks for joining us for another installment of Lessons in Leadership. As Tammy said, I'm a market executive for Bank of America here in Southeast Michigan, and I really have the privilege and honor of serving our clients with award-winning financial professionals, research, while supporting our colleagues for professional enrichment and engagement. And I also have the privilege of helping to invest in our communities to create economic mobility for more and advance racial equality. So we have places that thrive for all. Our commitment is to improve financial lives one connection at a time. And this Lessons in Leadership, this is a series that is a demonstration of that work and investment. It's a series of conversations crafted to assist us in learning from the experiences of some who have traveled quite a journey. And just maybe her story or his story will help inform or guide our work for the future and for good. So we here at Bank of America are really proud to sponsor these engagements because we know just how important leadership is. We invest in student leaders, our Mackinac future leaders, and support more seasoned leaders for the benefit of us all. And time again, but especially over the last 18 months, we've seen how trusted and honest and transparent leadership is necessary to support dynamic communities. And when that leadership fails, we also see the spiraling results of that too. So we thank the Chamber for curating and highlighting these tremendous leaders and their stories. It's been a treat for me to hear from each of them. And on behalf of our 2,000 teammates across the state of Michigan, we hope that these conversations will assist you as we continue to emerge from the dual pandemics of sickness and racism as we heal and repair. So I wish you well, and thank you again. And Tammy, back to you.
Thank you very much, Tiffany. So let me introduce today's speaker, and I will remind you that our speaker will present for about 15 minutes, and then she and I will come together for a moderated conversation. If you do want to submit a question for Najah, please put it into the chat, and we'll monitor that to see if you have any questions. So today's Lessons in Leadership is with Najah Bazzy of Zaman. She is the CEO and the founder of Zaman. Today, she will discuss her unique leadership journey from leaving a six-figure salary as a nurse to creating a global nonprofit that's committed to empowering women to overcome extreme poverty. She will explore the importance of prioritizing who and what matters most to fulfilling your mission, as told through her experience building an organization around the transformative power of hope. So with no further delay, please meet Najah Bazzy.
Thank you, Tammy, and thank you, Tiffany and Bank of America and the team that's put this together. And as well, I'd like to thank our Zaman team for their support. I see some friends, Tammy, on the screen here. So hello to all of you who I do know. It's nice to see your names join. Thank you so much. So as Tammy said, First of all, I'm most honored to have this discussion and to really just, I'm more of a heart-to-heart type individual. I don't do the PowerPoints and things like that because I think that leadership is truly vision, and that's something that exists not only through the eyes of your heart, but through the eyes of your mind. And so it doesn't require a whole lot of notes to really be able to speak about it. But I did want to focus on the who, the how, the what, the why, and just give us a kind of a framework in the next 15 minutes to talk about how it is that we've realized leadership here at Zaman. And I will also share with you, I've had the great honor of just attending Harvard's strategic leadership program for nonprofit management. And so I was with 100 global leaders for a very intense week. And I was really happy to learn that Zaman actually is doing all of the right things, but there's certainly room to tighten up the system, learn how to scale at impact, things like that, that I found really fascinating. So we definitely shared our voice in our journey, and I'm hoping to carry that knowledge with me and pass it on to any leader that's hoping to learn. And I'm a lifelong learner, and I hope that you are too. So never too old for any of us to learn. So regarding how it is that, how I approach this, I approach it from the who. I'm Stephen Covey trained, so I have the 7 habits that are kind of part of my nucleus. And so beginning with the end in mind is one of those habits. Whenever I'm doing anything, I do think about what is that end in mind and how do we back into that end in mind. So first and foremost, for whatever we are doing, it could be personal or professional. What is the end in mind? And then what are the steps? What are the strategic steps? And sometimes we don't even think about it as being strategic or strategy, especially in our personal lives, but actually it is, because you're backing up and then you're beginning to plot about how it is, you know, what dots on this map are you connecting to reach the goal that you've set? So what is the end in mind? Here at Zaman, the end in mind is our women, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But as we think about what the end in mind is, the next question is something that we now call Q0. Before you can answer any question, the Q0 is this. What exactly, underlined, what exactly do you do? What exactly do our organizations do? So oftentimes we can get away from the base core of the mission if we're not reminding ourselves and practicing staying at the core, because at the core is where there's impact. So the answer to your Q0 is what begins to shape our mission and our operations. For Zaman, which by the way means time, and it's about how we spend our time in the stewardship of others while we are here on earth. I'd also like to just in parentheses say that you know, I am a nurse, critical care background, have worked everywhere in nursing, but 2 specialties. One is in the transcultural model of approach, and that's really kind of more solutions-based, and the other part is in end-of-life work. Because of the end-of-life work, because I have been with so many people who have passed on into their next dimension, they've left me with beautiful golden nuggets. And the one thing that I always remind myself is that we are all term limited. And so we may have terms at our boards and things like that, but in actuality, every breath counts, and every breath we take is leading us in a direction that is forward, not backward. So in that spirit is how I've developed my leadership style, because I'm always remembering what it is that I've learned from my patients and their families. So let's go back now to the Q0. What is it exactly that Zaman does? Zaman breaks the cycle of poverty. Now it's taking us 20 years to get there, but ultimately this is our goal. And we're just about on the cusp of accomplishing this mission. So we have to ask, who do we do it for? Here at Zaman, we are doing it for predominantly mothers, but women who are single heads of their families. For whatever reason, they've come into this situation and they live in extreme poverty. Now we're just going to talk about Southeast Michigan. Extreme poverty here at Zaman is below $12,000 a year. That includes all of their subsidies. The majority of the mothers that we see have about 3.5, and we say 3.5 because that's the average family. So 3 to 4 people per family, mom and 3 children. Usually housing is not sufficient. Oftentimes the barriers are transportation, childcare, and they're coming for the most part from trauma, some sort of traumatic situation, whether that trauma is a relationship issue, whether it is an economic issue, if it is an illness issue, maybe even a transfer issue, meaning they're coming from another country as a refugee or what have you. Whatever it is, the circumstances have landed this single mom, female head of household with these children. Now, many moms also have many, many other children, and some mothers are even responsible for their relatives, their nieces and nephews, in addition to their own children, all below $12,000 a year. So who do we take care of? This is who. What exactly do we do? Break the cycle of poverty. Why do we do it? And that's a really important question, is for all of us to ask ourselves, why do we do what we do? So I've been giving this a lot of thought because it's deeply personal, but it also has to be part of the greater good. So for me, and I would ask you to ask yourself the same question, for me, it's about injustice. I can't handle seeing injustice. And there's this very famous saying in our faith tradition that if you see an injustice, you should fix it with your hands. And if you can't fix it with your hands, you should speak out against it with your tongue. And if you can't speak out against it with your tongue, at a minimum, you should condemn it in your heart. But the third is the weakest of faith, which means that when we see these injustices, and certainly the pandemic has shed light on injustice in a way that no one should be able to turn away from it. I can't handle it. I simply can't. So I go into nurse mode. I go into action. What do we need to do to fix this problem? So this is the why for me. But for the organization overall, why do we do what we do? Is because we are hoping not only do we break the cycle of poverty for this family, but we are in a position to prevent intergenerational poverty and allow the children to grow up with a greater chance at making it in life. So we want to stabilize this mother. We want to be able to help stabilize the things around her, those basic needs that you and I need, food and clothing and shelter and all of the things that at least get us through a day. And we want to move this mom and her family by her choice from stability to sustainability. So this is why we do what we do. We want a better world. We want a better Southeast Michigan. We want a better Michigan. I want a better nation, and I want a better world. So I'm going to stay at this until we create the model that then can be replicated and duplicated in other places. Are we having success? Yes, Zaman is having tremendous success, but it's been a long, long journey. This has started from a baby that was dying in a laundry basket, couldn't see the injustice, to taking care of one family, to then running the organization for nearly 15 years out of the back of my van until we had an opportunity to get a board that wasn't a mom and pop board any longer and actually go deep into the organization and start building out. When we did this, it was pivotal because that was about 2010. So it had been 15 years into the mission itself already. We had enough knowledge as a grassroots organization. How do you do this? But we didn't have the sophistication to know how to build out an organization. And so step by step, we are called the zigzag leader. We are the leader that zigs and zags and learns and sees the waters ahead. And sometimes there are blocks in this water or barriers, and you take your canoe and you zig and you zag to get to where you need to be. So we have a model of approach. Our model of approach, we decided that rather than referring our clients here, there, and everywhere, why don't we find a center that's large enough to house everything under one roof? And that's exactly what we did. We have our Hope for Humanity Center located here in Inkster, Michigan. And then what we do is we begin with case management. That's a point of entrance. Once we've stabilized, we move toward all of our other programs. Are there literacy issues? Are there vocational training things that can be addressed? Can we graduate these students from, literacy programs and GED? Are there people who want to move into vocational training skills? What does the vocation give them? And now, as we approach 2022, it's workforce development. So we've done everything we need to do in our map. But we can't break the cycle of poverty if we can't get mom employed. So our model of approach is everything in one center. Transportation, childcare are still barriers that we have to solve for, but we're so excited that we're going to actually be able to do this. And we're doing it two ways. One is through the vocational training in industrial sewing, and the second way is the vocational training through culinary arts. So we created what we call client corridor. You walk through one door, and then you walk into this massive 32,000 square foot area where you see clothing that you can have for your children. You see household goods that you can get all free of charge. You see women, mothers working in our kitchen, learning a skill set. Other people are sewing. Other people are learning to read and write. Immersion programs, entrepreneurship programs, all of it coming together to support the ability to raise this mother to a point where she can be employable. We want to do employment on site for at least 1 to 2 years. Give them the soft skills as well as the employment skills to then be able to launch them out into the world. So this is our operational model. Now, one of the things that I really want to share is these two sides, right? So the right side of this is where our mission and vision lie. It's where what is called this desired domain of cherished outcomes, right? This is where you're dreaming really big. This is where Zaman wants to solve for Southeast Michigan, wants to solve for Michigan, wants to solve for the nation, wants to solve for the world. Now, it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of effort. If we learn how to collaborate, learn how to build our capacity, it shouldn't take the 20 years that it's taken us to get here, because we know how to do it better and smarter now. The left side is tactile. It's the operations. It's everything that you have to do in operations, all the processes, all the inputs, everything. This side is management. This side is leadership. You can't function if you don't have both. So Zaman is like, again, right on that cusp of being able to break the cycle of poverty and really produce the results that we've been hoping for. I have to tell you, it's a point of humility. The thought of it sometimes just brings me to tears because I'm watching this happen. And when you see it from the grassroots and you're seeing it finally come to this realization with all of the heartache, all of the tears, all of the everything, your whole being going into this, supported by a team that is absolutely phenomenal, absolutely committed. What Zaman is doing is building a culture that provides hope to humanity. We're learning that the culture we build in our organizations is long-lasting. That's where the legacy is for any organization. Culture of the organization is more important than the structure of the organization. Structure has to be there, but again, that's the tactile piece. That's the management piece. But if people at work don't understand what the culture of the organization is, how they feel when they arrive, how they feel when they leave, how they feel when they wake up in the morning and need to come back to work again. If we haven't built that, then we're actually missing a piece, a very important piece of that structure. So Zaman actually has fantastic retention. And if someone does leave the organization, we're really cheering them on because they're actually going to something that's even better for them in their professional life. So not only are we an organization that's supporting women through poverty, but we really seem to be becoming an organization that's also kind of like a jumping board, a diving board is what I should say, where people are able to really dive in and then create even that bigger splash in their personal lives. And that's something that we cherish. Why not? Why not push our humanity forward, and why not push our humanity up? So, you know, it has the mission of poverty, but it also has the mission of providing women and children hope. And then we also have the mission of really just trying to make our world all together better wherever we can and however we can. So, Tammy, I'm going to turn it back to you and we can begin to chat.
Well, thank you very much, Najah, and I'm looking forward to further discussion. But I have to tell you, the story is so impressive. I know it's something you do from your heart, but it's quite impressive for those of us who get to sit and listen to this, and the importance that you place on helping other women, and especially those who really need to get out of extreme poverty. So I want to just, before we talk about leadership, talk a little bit more about Zaman. And your tagline is hope for humanity. So can you talk about what role hope plays in empowering women to break the cycle of extreme poverty?
If I could do that without crying, yes. So, you know, when people are leaving this world, the one thing you see in their eyes is hope. And they taught me that. So, you know, as a critical care nurse, Tammy, you know, you might have somebody in your arm, you're right at their bedside, the family's there, and they're going through this transition. Sometimes as healthcare providers, we think, oh, we know what they need. But that is different for every human being. They may have hope for the next breath. They may have hope to be out of pain. They may have hope to have a forgiving moment between someone, you know, that they had an issue with, that they loved deeply. They may have hope just to leave in peace. And there's so many things that are baked into hope. But this is what I've learned. They've taught me this. Every person on the screen that's in front of me right now, although I can only see your silhouettes, and a few of you have background pictures, so I can actually see those. But your hope is something that is constant, it's innate. And when you take away hope from people, you lead them, or that you leave them, I should say, into darkness. I believe firmly as a nurse, as a human sister to this humanity, that it's our responsibility to help people see light wherever we can. And, you know, it's not like this is some nebulous, oh, North Star, and I'm some, you know, child of the 60s, which I am, you know, Detroit child of the 60s with some nebulous idea. No, this is real. This is so raw and so real. So we do not define people's hope. When they come to Zaman, it's like, what is your hope? What do you need? It might just be that they need food on their table. It might be that they have a big dream to actually work. It could be that they just want their kids to have a backpack. It could be that they want a coat. We're not here to define the hope. We're here to nurture the hope. And I think that's something that as leaders, but even just as people, that we do for each other every single day, but we don't talk about it. At Harvard, I kept saying, hope is a strategy. They kept telling me, no, Najah, hope is not a strategy. I'm like, yes, hope is a strategy. They're like, no, it's not a strategy. It's an element, it's a component.
So it's been quite a couple of years for us. And because especially of the pandemic, women are being disproportionately impacted by the job loss or employment challenges that they may have as a head of a household, perhaps. Why is supporting female-led households so important, and what do we need to do better to empower all women?
So it's important because I have a background in open heart surgery. This is how I see it. This is my thought analogy. She's the beating heart of the family. If there's no one else, she's there with her children. She's the beating heart of that family. So she may have all these clogged arteries that we call poverty, homelessness, transportation, childcare, so on and so forth, right? Lack of education, all of these things. So in bypass surgery, you just go in and you stent that artery, or you bypass it and you get fresh blood going to the heart so that heart can continue to beat. That's how I see Zaman. That's how I see our work. So this is what we need to do. We either need to stent or bypass, take your choice, but get that blood flow back into that family unit, because if we do not, like dominoes, mom falls, what's falling behind her? So if we want to talk about a systems change in our society, we must pay attention to the head of the household, and already marginalized and already in a difficult situation because dealing with extreme poverty, but also because there's nobody else that's helping to prop them up. So the pandemic really shined light on that. Of course, it shined light on all the inequities that we have in our, in our human family. And everyone has to do their share to fix it. We all need to take a deep look inside. Because you know what? It may be a respiratory virus, Tammy, but in reality, we have a lot of viruses of racism and all kinds of other viruses that are allowed to continue to grow. And it's unacceptable, hands down unacceptable. So I keep saying we have to vaccinate ourselves against many things, not just this virus, but against the way we think, against these social constructs that allow us to think that one person is actually better than another. That's an injustice to me. So I will live my last breath trying to fix that.
Yes, the other injustices that you're talking about, or viruses, I guess is what you said, if only there was a quick cure for it, which of course there isn't. So we all have to just keep working together collaboratively to try and go through those viruses one by one and try and eliminate them.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
you have spoken in the past. In the past, you've spoken about leading from the front and leading from the back. So why is leading from the back sometimes important? And how do you know when to lead from the back versus the front?
I think it depends on, can you hear me?
Yes, you started to fade out a little bit. We have you now.
Okay. I think it has to do with competence. So if Zaman is about me, I will always lead from the front. If Zaman is about the mission, I should definitely step back, lead from the back, and allow the team, each of them, to be able to step up to the plate and lead. But you have to make sure that the competency is there, that you've allowed enough space for their growth, that you've given them the tools that they need to continue to grow so that they can lead. So, and again, we're talking about leadership, but I just want to come back and say, Tammy, some people are phenomenal at the management piece. And we get confused because we think management is leadership. Leadership isn't a person, leadership is a process, but the leadership realm is more the mission vision. It's more the big picture. It's understanding how to build the system and recreate it for the greater good. So you need both of those elements. And so if I'm leading from the back, I'm going to push my team forward and allow them to find, where are they? Where did they land? Where's their sweet spot? And then try to grow that. We also do Strengths Finder here at Zaman, and we use our Strengths Finder to really identify our top 5 talents and how do those come together. So I'm not good at the process piece. My brain shuts off at the process piece, but you put me on the other side and like, I'm like flying, like, ooh, I get so excited about the leadership piece, but I can't do the process piece. My brain doesn't do that. So you really need both of these things in order to accomplish our goals and have that big systems change. So I'm a firm believer, and you know what, there's a sense of pride when you're able to lead from the back, because you know that, sort of the team has been following you, and then you have this pivot, then you start following them. And I mean, it's pretty powerful. It's exciting, it's exhilarating, because that means that you've accomplished your task, you've accomplished your you've given your best, and you can see, lots of blossoms around you. Why not?
Can you talk to us about who some of the leaders are that have impacted you the most and have helped you to become the leader that you are today?
I thought long and hard about, people ask me this question all the time, and I think people expect me to have the specific response. Like, I'm inspired by just about everyone and anyone. I'm inspired by a lot of things, like the mother that can build her nest and just manage to like create a home for her babies. Like, that blows my mind. Like, how does she do that? And she does it in such a sturdy way. And she knows how to do it, and she feathers it, and then she takes them to the edge, and then she teaches them how to fly. It's like that whole idea. So I'm not just inspired by people, I'm inspired by observations. I'm inspired by the cross-pollination. Carbon, the element carbon, that blows my mind. I'm nuts about carbon because it can produce toxicity and it can produce diamonds. But if there's a leader that really comes to my mind, it's the leader that I live with in my mind. And it's one of the saints in my religious tradition, Ali. He would be the son-in-law and nephew of the Prophet Muhammad. And this is his ethical leadership. He was visited by a person who came to his tent back, 1500 years ago. And he tufted the candle with his fingers. And so the person said to him, "We're sitting in darkness. Why did you shut the candle?" He said, "I'll relight another one." So he relit a second candle. The second one was his candle, but the first one wasn't. And he said, "The first one belongs to the people. And we will not have this personal meeting at the cost of the people. We will have it at the cost of me." And so the reason why I take a salary at Zaman, this is the reason why. I can't, because I'm like, that's the donor's money. That goes to the cause. I'll figure it out on my own someplace else. So that type of ethical leadership, it inspires me. Jim, who we all know, says, "I've never met a more moral organization," because we really think long and hard about our ethical platform. I think that's why we're so trustworthy. That's why we're growing, because people know Zaman has a red line. We will not compromise our stewards. We will not compromise our donors. We do not chase money that we can't use. We don't do those kinds of things. And our client is at the core. So we are creating that culture of ethical leadership. If I leave the world with anything, this is what I want to leave the world with. Because we've seen the fallout of unethical leadership throughout human history. When it's about you, we're all in trouble. When it's about we all are lifted.
Well, my next question, I'm not sure can be answered very simply, because I'm just finding there's just so many pieces of you and places of you. But how did you develop your leadership style?
The kitchen. I'm sure it was the kitchen. So I'm an Arab, Lebanese, Syrian subcultures. Family's been in America over 135 years, but my grandmother lived with us, and my mom tells these stories of me being 3 and 4 years old and at the sink. There's something very powerful about raising kids in the kitchen, because if you think about all the millions of things you do in the kitchen is a place of strategic growth. You have to think, you have to plan, you have to order, in your mind, the way you're going to do things. And I love to cook. I love food. I love to serve. I love this. And so I think the ability to go boom, 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 boom in the kitchen for a family of 8 of us, and growing up with this, and growing up with a grandmother who cooked for the community for 400 or 500 people, and I was her, right hand. I think that really taught me a lot. but she used to take 25 pounds of flour and throw it in this huge thing to make these beautiful cookies. And you should tell me, put your hands in here. And I would just do what she would do. I was like 8, 9 years old. But I learned, I think subliminally, I learned how to mold things, how to create something out of multiple ingredients, because it followed me into healthcare. When someone was dying, Tammy, there's something called the red box. And it's a code blue like you see on Grey's Anatomy, and everyone's screaming, everyone's running into the room. I could open up that red toolbox of medication and just go boom, 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 boom. And I think because I was so agile in the kitchen, it gave me that ability to learn how to, and whenever I'm stressed out, and I'll end with this, whenever I'm stressed out and I can't figure something out in my mind, I go to my kitchen sink or a kitchen sink, and I start to look at all the dirty dishes in my mind, and I just start to rinse them and stack them, clean the sink out, and then I'm able to see the vision and start again. So I think everyone has an analogy, everyone. That happens to be my analogy. But I think you need an analogy that you come back to all of the time because it's what you know how to do best.
And you have certainly shared many analogies with us today that I think we will all take forward and maybe push ourselves to do the same. The use of analogies helps someone to follow. So one of the other great reasons that you are the leader you are. We're coming close to the end, but I wanted to give you an opportunity. You brought up during your remarks your client quarter. Tell us a little bit more about that and how it's going to allow Zaman, to make something of impact in workforce development and employment opportunities.
Well, we're hoping through our commercial culinary arts kitchen. So we have 2 kitchens. One is the training kitchen and now the commercial side of the kitchen. We want to take a product to market. And in fact, the global baker who used to bake for Panera, he'll be here at 12 o'clock. He came to us through a donor and he's going to teach us how to do this. So graduate on one side with the culinary art program and then employment right there. Same thing with the sewing classes. So sewing and then industrial sewing and then product to market. So here's my big ask. If any of you on this chat are connected to anyone in the food distribution arena or the garment and textile industry, because there's a huge need for that in the Detroit area as well, let us know because we're really ready. We're going to be in our exploratory phase for the next 4 months, but we're ready to roll. It's so exciting. And I invite you to come here. Let us make you a meal. Come see the magic that happens here. It's such a feel good. And it's not like we're glamorous, by the way. We're not so glamorous. We're not a glitzy building. But when you walk in here, you feel the hope that we all feel. And that's just like we're worth more than anything. It's just amazing. So excited to be your host.
Taking a product to market, I mean, that's really amazing and what a great step. Did you build a business plan for that, or is this just something coming organically for you?
Yeah, usually things come organically for us, and everyone's like, how? I'm like, well, this is the exploratory phase. Harvard taught me something. You don't know what you don't know. Yeah. So I can't go create a business model when I don't know what I don't know. But in 4 months, do we have to create a business model? Yes. But let's use this exploratory time to make our mistakes, to learn, to understand. And, I guess that's the only way to do this. So the product to market will employ our clients, break their cycle of poverty, right? So it's not about the cookie, it's about breaking the cycle of poverty. But along the way, if Zaman is able, to create a social enterprise for itself and go ahead and realize some level of sustainability from it, great. If not, are we meeting our mission? Yes. And that's really where it's at, client at the core. And so I imagine, I'm inspired by Focus Hope's model when I was 16. And so that stayed with me. And this is what that will look like one day very soon. But we're already there. We're already ready to go.
Well, that's fantastic. We've got just a couple of minutes left. I want to allow you that time to share anything that you didn't get to share, that I didn't ask, that you think is important for our listeners today.
Well, thank you so much. I want to come back to the structure and the culture piece. So we can build out all the processes we want, but if we haven't created the culture for the vision, no matter what it is, whether you're for profit or nonprofit, and keep that as our North Star, we're not going to be able to reach the capacities that we could reach. So I say that with the caveat that we need to start from zero arrogance and understand that there's always something to learn, and there could be power structures at play. But it's our job to just bring our best self. And if we see toxicity around us, we need to stomp it out and stand up for it. But if we can't do that in our own organizations, we can't really talk about it or bring about the change that you were talking about a little bit earlier, Tammy. So, and then lastly, in closing, I think we need to remember that we breathe. And without breath and heartbeat, we're non-existent. So that ability to really, they call it being present in the moment. I don't call it being present in the moment, because if you didn't have a heartbeat for a moment, you're gone. It's being present every second, not in the moment. It's like, yeah, I've been talking for 15, 20 minutes now. That's gone. I can't get that back. And none of us can. So what's our North Star? In our personal families and our professional lives, what's the North Star? And let that be our guiding light.
Najah, I should know this, but have you written a book?
No.
You
So
have to. You've just impacted me so much today. You have to write a book.
Jim, I know you're smiling because Jim and I'm like, I can write about other people's stories and the way they've affected me. I don't know that, but I don't think I could write about me, but I think I would love to write about leadership. I would love, I think that's the next phase of my life as we move into succession planning for me. 61 years old, I'm a grandmother of 5 and, mother of 4 and daughter responsible, the nurse in the family, community mentor for the youth, all of that. But what I really want to do is kind of create this leadership movement, whether we call that a summit, whether maybe we can all kind of work on this together. But, how do we look now at the system of Southeast Michigan? How do we look at this Wake County in this area? And how do we decide what's the priorities? What are we going to lift up? How are we going to do it? And, bringing the experts to the table and getting us the tools that we need. So well, I'm hoping to, for sure.
Well, there's no doubt in my mind that that will happen because you will make sure it happens. I can see the determination in you as a leader. It's been such a pleasure talking with you today, Najah, and I really do hope you write that book. I could see all your analogies being another chapter and another chapter and another chapter just around those analogies. But it's been really special talking with you today. I know our viewers learned an awful lot. And also, you showed the real need for helping to lift up women in our community who need lifting up. It's great that we have Zaman there to do that, but we all have a role to play there too. Exactly. And it has been just such a joy. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the honor, everyone, and for taking your time to be with us today. It's deeply appreciated. Thank you.
And thank you to all of our listeners. We greatly appreciate you joining us. I know you enjoyed this as much as I did. I will tell you our next Lessons in Leadership will be with Dr. Audrey Gregory, who is the CEO of Detroit Medical Center. So that should be a very interesting discussion. Again, this was recorded. So I'm sure if it impacted all of you like it impacted me, you're going to want to tell your friends. So thank you to everyone, and I hope you all have a great day.